What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm Coach Ken from Giving It a Try, and tonight we're going to have a little bit of a different type of episode. Usually, I dive into one type of long form content, something I've been preparing, something I've been making notes on, but I've been getting some good feedback and some good conversations with people that have been following in, and they've put out just a few different questions and small topics. So I think what's good is from time to time, we're going to branch into this format, which is going to be, I'll call it Coffee with Coach. And what does that mean? It's we're going to break down some just individual topics, kind of like a potluck talk about endurance. So if there's something you think that you want to hear about, maybe something that's a little shorter, or just a question, or even a question about myself, my racing, my experience, anything related to my athletes or the training programs that I deliver, anything and everything is on the table, and I'll just accumulate those in some type of note that I usually keep on my phone and the computer. And when I get enough to really make like a half hour or so episode out of it, we'll just kind of rock and roll and go through the list here. I do want to thank everybody, the supporters and listeners. This has been truly awesome over the last 2 months as the episodes have been rolling out every Monday as of right now. Don't forget to subscribe. You can, if you're watching the video version of this, you're on YouTube, so make sure you subscribe, you like, and you comment on the video, and give me some feedback on there or some of your own tips and tricks in relation to things we're talking about. If you're on the audio side of things here, you might be listening on Spotify, you might be listening on Apple Podcasts. There's a host of number of different places that you can find the podcast. Just search Giving It a Try and it should pop up. If there's a platform that you do use and you would like to have this on there, let me know and I can do the research I need to do in order to get the podcast available to you on that. So from here on out, we're just going to kind of dive into it here. Again, these are going to be some quick topics, short form stuff that I've gotten, in my inbox or DMs and things like that. But really give you an update. This episode will probably come out right before my next race. I just finished up a half marathon. It was a PR attempt at a local half marathon. I did accomplish the PR. Just missed my goal time of what I was really looking to do. I was looking to go sub 1:30. My PR at the 13.1 before that was a couple years ago at the Brooklyn half. And that was a very fast course, kind of net downhill finish that on that one. And that was 131 and change. I think it was a 131.39. I was pacing to do sub 130 at this one. Kind of aggressive. I have another half marathon coming up in May, which I was definitely going to try and shoot for there. But I said, you know what? I was feeling good. And I said, let me see what I can do and what I can go for that day out there recently and kind of just be able to see how deep into it I could go. And I paced like exactly for a 130 on that. So I actually hit the 130, the sub 130. It was like 129.46 at about probably with about a quarter mile to go on my watch. It was a looped course. And I've learned now doing two looped courses. I did a looped marathon in January and a looped marathon, half marathon rather, this past one, which was 4 loops of the park. There's no mile markers. So the problem with pacing an event like that, say you're looking to Boston qualify, which was what my friend was doing at the race in January, the marathon, then this is just a tip out there for those if you're looking at certain course profiles. Having looped courses kind of, if they don't have mile markers out there, you can't get a true and accurate check-in of where you're at when that mile marker hits on your watch in relation to the course. Because you know what happens. You've been out there, you've been running in a race, and you'll notice maybe your watch for a few miles will beep just before the mile marker. Maybe the mile markers will catch up depending how they mark the course. But at least you'll know if it's consistent. Say you were looking for that half marathon PR, and by mile 8 or 9, you were still falling 200 meters before the mile marker every time that your watch went off, you would know, okay, this course is measuring a little longer than my GPS is measuring it today. So maybe I have to pick up the pace just a little bit if I do want to have that official time in there. So that's something that I learned. My next attempt, I'm going to go for a true sub 130 half marathon will be the beginning of May. And that is a 1 loop course. It is mile marked. I've done it before. It's the Long Island half marathon and I'm going to go for it. We're going to pace probably for a 129.30 just to be hopefully conservative in the fact that I'll have that 30-second window where if I start to taper off in those last couple miles by a few seconds per mile, I can hopefully sneak in and check that box. if anything, hopefully it'll be another PR and I can just chip away at that block. And a side note with stuff like that, it was pretty funny when a friend asked how my half went, and I told him what, how it was, and I got a reaction from them where they're like, "Oh, 130? I thought for sure you can run faster than that." And it's like, man, if you knew what I've been had to do over the last few years to work up to that point, I mean, that kind of was a little deflating. Whereas, but it was a comment, I guess, out of just there was no harm behind it, but it was just one of those things where you're like, really, man? Like, 130 is pretty damn good for myself. I just turned 41 years old this past weekend. I only started doing this when I was 34 years old or whatever, and have been just slowly progressing the time down. But what I do pride myself on with these races is having consistency in execution on race day. And what do I mean by that is the fact that I come up with a goal that I pretty sure is attainable. Some of the goals I'm setting now, starting this year, are becoming, a little more aggressive because that's just naturally where the times are going. It's becoming very hard to start shaving some more times off these distances. But, conservative enough where I want to have a good day. I don't want to set some super audacious goal of like, I'm going to pace for a 125 where, I'm going to hold it for 6 to 7 miles probably. And then it's just going to be a crapshoot at the end. Like, I don't want to crash and burn towards the end of a race. Like, I want to train because I love the journey. I love the training blocks. I love executing the workouts and everything that goes along with it. All these big blocks I talk about in training. And then having race day as your victory lap, your final result that can, the victory lap for your training, and to be able to execute on race day and keep chipping away at the block. Like, cool. If I go 129.50 at this next half, awesome. Next time around when I want to revisit the half marathon distance, because I like to, jump around and be adaptable to different types of distances, which you'll see in a second, is, maybe I'll go for a sub 129 next time and just try and chip away a little bit more. But for the time being, like, staying focused on that goal. It's already a PR for the year, so that's pretty cool. I have a 50K coming up, which will be the next race. Probably going to happen. It may actually be the week that this comes out, the short 50K. Along the lines of that, I've done that 50K 3 times before that course. I've done the 100K, which was an out and back on that course last year. And the 3 years in a row that I did the 50K, I took significant amounts of time off and had a really good result 2 years ago in 2023. Total time on that race it measured just over 50K. It was about 32 and change miles. Was a 4:55 with the 50K split being about 4:45 and change. So looking towards that, looking towards how my training is this year, looking towards how I'm feeling. Hopefully the next couple weeks lines up good with training and recovery. And we're going to shoot for a PR again. And again, I don't want to go crazy and shoot for some goal where, I may just not have a good day out there. Like, if I can run a 4:50 overall time, knock 5 more minutes off, that's a home run. That's a win. Like, it's still a step in the right direction. And even if I leave a certain percentage, a couple percent on the table of effort that day, awesome. Leave a little money in the bank. It's all about just progressing with this journey time and time again. Like, I don't have to go shoot for the stars or just go just keep chasing this crazy goal and just missing it every single time. Like, I'd rather hit good results, just keeping my path and journey towards maybe what my potential might really be. Another fun question I had, because I've been doing over the last few years a lot of running in the winter time, fall, winter, into the springtime for these trail runs and ultra runs. And I just ran a road marathon with friends, not at my full effort, but it was a really good effort. We ran basically a sub 3:30 in January, pacing a friend of mine. And I've been asked, actually, how many marathons have you run? Specific road marathons was my 4th solo road marathon. I also had the Ironman marathon as well, if you want to call that. But it's pretty funny. There's a cool app that I use that I want to talk about real quick because it kind of ties into this, is the RunGap app. And what's good about that is you load in all your different accounts, you load in your Garmin and your Strava, and it will accumulate. I mean, I think I even logged into my Fitbit from before I had a Garmin, and it pulls all of your data into this one app. And the good part is, like, you own the data in that app. It's a small fee for the app yearly, and that's fine. But the good thing is you can also then send that workout to different apps. So if you had a syncing problem where something didn't go to Training Peaks and you wanted to get it there, you can go into this RunGap. It may pull it from Garmin, it'll show up, and then you can send it to Training Peaks, or pull in a Zwift workout and send it somewhere as well. And the good part about that is, like, you own the data. So if, you know, this Garmin ecosystem goes down or something, you at least have a backup of all your data on there. And it's very good at not putting duplicates in there from different things. It's not going to pull your runs from Garmin and Training Peaks. But the good thing about is how you can filter the workouts. And what's cool about that is you can go, it's super quick too. You know, you can, if you, I mean, you can see it on the video up here, but this is just a selection of runs that I filtered. Because someone had asked me, how many marathons have you run? I said, I don't know. Let's go take a look. I knew how many official marathons I did, but you could filter by all runs, minimum distance. So if you do all runs, minimum distance, it'll show anything you've run, because I put in 26 miles or more in a single run session. And it's just fun to look up those things and see, especially the further you get in this journey, like, you know, especially if you need a little motivation for yourself, you want to kind of take a look back at where you came from with all this, and where, you know, you just need that little extra, like, you've been doing it for a while, like, check it out. This is counting ultras and things like that. So 16 times now in the last few years, I've run more than a marathon or longer distance. And then also then I was asked, and because I'm I guess you would say, out of the 3 disciplines, swim, bike, run, more of a runner at heart. If I had to choose one out of the 3, it probably would be running, just because it's something I can do all year round outside. It's something that's very versatile. You can do it really anywhere you have a pair of shoes, whether that's road, trail, or anything. And if you want to know more about my running history, I mean, the amount of times I've run at least a half marathon distance in training or racing or more, again, I just popped in 13 on there, and it will, boom, bring you back to the results, the filter right there. 128 times I've run more than 13 miles or more on a training run. And then you can break that down. I always say, after you've been in this for a while, I say this to my friends, we kind of, a lot of us have agreed is, you know, what is a good place to be at with running fitness? And a good place for me to be in that is when I'm in the shape to just go run 10 miles on a Saturday morning with friends at an easy pace. Like, someone's like, hey, what do you got going on? Whether I'm in a training plan for a certain race or not, and just to have the ability to go out for a double-digit run with friends and not be smashed the rest of the day. So when you go down now to, and we've done that a lot, like sometimes you just want to hit that double-digit mark on the weekends. When you talk about the difference now between my 13-mile plus runs or 10-mile plus runs, how many times since, and I guess this whole journey started in, let's see, this is 8 years ago now, I believe, 8 full years of this endurance journey. In that time frame, 238 times I've run 10 or more miles in a training session or a race. So, I mean, when I look at that, I remember it's like, wow, like that's awesome. Like, I've, you know, that you can have the ability at, when I started, you know, about 34, 35 years old, in my late 30s, to just start doing this, and having been able to run at least 10 miles or more in a given run 238 times. Like, that's wild to me. Like, so it's cool that you can go in there, you can turn your phone, you can go in landscape mode. It'll give you graphs on things over the years and how many miles you've done, your elevation. It's just a pretty cool, very simple app to just look at all your training stuff. You can do swimming, biking, running. I mean, anything you've logged, you can actually look at how many yoga sessions you've done. It'll give you everything right then and there over the last few years. So you can kind of understand where you're progressing and things like that. So that's a little more history about my running. I just had a couple questions from people on just, you know, how often I run, how many marathons I run, or distances and things like that. So we're going to switch topics now real quick. Was another one that somebody asked, and I see it get posted a lot, so I do feel like it needs a couple minutes to be spoken about here, is this watch right here, right? This Garmin, this training status, right? You go out for this run, you go out for this effort, and what does it tell you at the end of the day? You know, you get you get done with it, and all of a sudden now it's telling you unproductive, overreaching. I've been maintaining for weeks. I'm peaking for an Ironman. How is it maintaining? And people post about it. They get angry at their watches. And this will lead into another topic that I talk about in a little bit, is this paralysis by analysis with data, and how sometimes we get so focused on what the output of your device is, what it's telling you, that we start to lose connection with actually how we feel, how our training's going. But as far as that, the training status specifically on the Garmin ecosystem, because that's what I'm invested in and that's what I know and what I did my research on when I first started seeing these things pop up on the watches when they had these features, it's your training status. And with the training status, it measures that status by a few metrics. Your VO2 max, your training load, and your HRV. Your VO2 max is a value that's going to give you, that's the maximum rate at which your body can use oxygen during exercise. And this is based off your data from cycling, running activities, and it goes by heart rate and pace values and trends over time, and it'll judge if you're getting fitter or not. And again, take that VO2 max with a grain of salt, because it's not it's not lab-based data. It's just a guesstimation from a wearable. But that is part of the trifecta, if you will, of how that Garmin training status gets detected. HRV, which is heart rate variability. And this is typically measured at night while you're sleeping. You'll get scores. Typically, you'll see it in the morning. This is kind of your recovery demands, how stressed you are from training, from life, how well you slept, what that value is, and what that trend is over time. And don't focus HRV without going into it on the specific number. Don't compare it to your friend and be like, oh my God, mine's so much lower than yours. I heard that a higher one's better. More so, it's the trend over time. It's what, if it's trending down and it's not balanced, it's not within this range that it's been, it's going to detect that you're a little too stressed. You may have a little extra fatigue in the body. Maybe coming off being sick, could be getting sick. A lot of other factors involved with that. So without getting too much into it, HRV is a factor. And that's, again, those big block philosophy that I talk about. Rest, recovery, and things like that. Another one, the last piece of the puzzle, is your training load. Now, every time you work out, if you look at like something like Training Peaks, they give you a stress score, TSS, training stress score. It's like your intensity by duration of your exercise will determine what this score is. And if this score is not within certain values or certain trends, that will have an effect on it. Now, with all this being said, what's very important about that specific value, the training load value, is you need to have your data in the Garmin accurate. So you need to have your zones accurate. So when you're running or cycling, you're in the specific zone that you're in. If you're running easy all the time, a big 80% of your training and easy, moderate runs, but your zones are off and it's registering this as a higher heart rate zone because you didn't adjust your heart rate zones properly in there, or vice versa, you're trying to do a harder workout, but it's measuring it too easy, you're not going to get the same training stress score that you need on there. As well, one of the other things I talked about in the past was these external platforms we use. Like we use Zwift for cycling, and it matches up very well with Garmin. So when you bike on Zwift and have a workout, a stress score will be generated on Zwift, and it will be sent over to all your other platforms, including Garmin. And that'll register a training stress score that will alter your total training stress score for the week. Other platforms like the new Training Peaks Virtual, which is very similar to the Zwift cycling app, and I actually really like it. Unfortunately, it doesn't have a built-in plugin right now to send the data the way Zwift does, this compatibility that it needs, to be able to send a training stress score there. So even if you use another app like RunGap and send the workout there to Garmin, when you're done on the Training Peaks Virtual app, it's not going to generate this training stress score. It's going to show up as a workout in Garmin, but if you look at your training stress score, it doesn't change it. So if all of a sudden you've been doing all these Zwift workouts and it's been loading and your training stress score has been in this certain average, and you start using this other platform that's not registering it as a stress score in Garmin, it's going to think you're working out less, even though your time and miles are there in the Garmin app, it's still not going to generate something against your stress score. And then there's 2 stress scores that it looks at. It looks like at an acute stress score, which is about the last 7 days of amount of work you've done, and it will compare that to your chronic stress score, which is over the last several weeks, and it will determine, is your acute score going in a progressive manner week after week, this progressive overload that we do, peaking and training for an event. If it goes too low, it may show detraining because you took too many days off or you got sick that week. Or if you went too hard on too many of these workouts, it's going to say overreaching or some other type of metric on there that's not going to say productive. Productive is everything's good. Your HRV is awesome. It's steady. Your VO2 max is steady or increasing, and that your training stress score is within the certain amount it needs to keep going up week after week, building fitness. I'm very data driven in the means of having accurate data. I don't really let the data so much rule me. Again, not that paralysis by analysis I talk about, but I focus on the inputs on my data, making sure it is all accurate. And then from time to time, I'll look at things as they come out in the outputs of these devices. But the inputs are very much more important in these metrics. What you're putting in, because if you're putting in crap data, non-accurate data, or you just like some workouts don't get loaded properly, or you have a double workout that gets posted because you're using a watch and the computer to log your indoor bike ride, and you just let both of them log in. Let Zwift log it over and you let your watch log it over. Now it looks like you have a double stress score for the day. And people get upset over their Garmin because it's not telling them, the proper data on the output side. So unless you're really honed in on the input of your data to these devices, you really can't follow much of the outputs because you're just not doing it right. If you're not wearing your watch 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you're not going to get these accurate HRV trends over time. So you can't just start wearing your watch for a week and be like, oh my God, my HRV's off. Like it takes a couple of weeks for it to really cycle and learn, follow your sleep patterns and all that stuff. So you really need to, again, focus on the inputs for these data if you really want to care about the outputs on this stuff. Switching gears here onto one of the next topics. And this is something I'm going to probably be working on because it's actually really important to me right now, and I'll tell you why, is strength training and endurance sports. We all know it's important. We all know that a lot of us like to skip on it, but how can we build it in? And this is something I'm working with my coached athletes right now, is I pushed together a back to strength program this off season. We did it last off season as well, but focused a little differently this off season in a progressive manner to get people moving their bodies again. Off season is the time to really get it all in on this because there is some adaptability that has to go on. There's going to be some increased fatigue going on because, again, if you haven't had a strength program in a while, you're going to have to, it's any new modality that you're going to be doing. Like if you haven't been running in a while and you start running, you're going to be a little sore and fatigued for this acute period of time, and you have to kind of get used to that. So we progressed starting really like November, December, body weight programs, moving the body every day, prepping the body. We did that basically for the entire month of December. Coming out of December, we started to increase a little bit with the resistance, adding weights. And those that are continuing with the strength right now are good because now it's April. We've been doing this for 3 or 4 months. And this is probably some of the most consistent that I've had in such a long span of strength training. Like I'm making it a point now to make sure I'm getting in a few sessions a week, even because I used to tail off as I started peaking for these races just because of fatigue and reasons and quote unquote not having enough time in the week. But I'm making it a priority now and then focusing on, again, some of those big blocks to support this extra training load that I have because of the strength training. I'm 2 weeks out from a 50K right now, and I'm still doing pretty good volume of strength because my body has pretty well adapted to it over the last couple months. I've gained a few pounds over the last few months. I've gained some muscle over the last few months with the strength training. And that's all okay for me because my performance hasn't declined and hasn't suffered because of that. But I'm also just turned 41 years old. So for me, strength is becoming a bigger focus and reason for me to keep doing it, regardless of if my performance starts to suffer at some point in relation to it, just because I feel that at a certain point in your, in age, as we go up, that strength changes will become that much more important. And I can definitely do a whole entire day or talk on this, and I'm trying to find a good guest to talk about it with, so we can go back and forth on a few things with it, is just the importance of it and how to cycle it throughout the year. The types of exercises we should be doing, how to, again, cycle, because even with your endurance training, you're going to cycle and peak for certain events. We don't just hold top fitness all year. If you're a marathoner, you're not going to be in marathon shape all year. So that's the same with strength, is we don't need to be the strongest we need to be all year, but we need to develop a baseline for what strong is for you, and then maintain that through your plan, so that when that marathon's done and you're recovered, you can get back into your strength program, really get all in on it, and then progress and keep going forward with there. And then every time you're cycling through it, you're just becoming stronger and more resilient, more durable, more pliable every single time you go through a training program, because you're adding on top of that factor as well. Just as when you train for that marathon, you're trying to become more efficient, trying to become better, you're trying to become faster and perform better every time you cycle through one of those marathon training sessions. So that's definitely something I will dive more in on, and it's definitely an important topic. So we will revisit that one in the future. Another question I have for people too is, because again, I look on Strava, I'm a coach, so I do have many athletes that I look at their workouts week after week, day after day. And you need to also just self-assess. You should know what the spectrum of your paces are for running. What I mean by that is you should be able to kind of, if you're experienced, you've run a decent amount of races, you've had a decent amount of start line and finish lines, you should be able to understand, like, if I sat down with Atlee and said, all right, what is your current 5K through marathon paces? You should kind of get a ballpark of what that is. So like for me, if somebody asked me that, I'd be able to say 5K, okay, we're looking at about 620. 10K, we're looking about 645. Half marathon, we're looking about 7 minutes per mile. Marathon, we're looking at about 730, 735 per mile. And then after all that though, what's your easy pace? Like, what do you run in that big bulk when you just have base miles and things like that? For me, it's anywhere mid high eights to sometimes low nines on the road. But when you're looking at it like that, my spectrum is from 620 for 5Ks to sometimes even a 920 for my easy paces. That's a 3-minute difference I have over the spectrum of different distances that I will run a 5K to my easy runs. Some people, it's a very narrow gap, so they haven't broadened their spectrum yet, which needs to be done. That's something I really work with the athletes that I work with, is pulling that spectrum apart. Let's get that 5K fast. Let's build some speed. Let's build strength, but let's also slow it down on these easy runs. We need to really build that aerobic base at these lower heart rates so that we can pull apart. When people start to pull that spectrum of their paces apart a little bit, they'll start to become a more experienced, a better runner, and have breakthrough performances, because they're starting to understand that, if you're running a 9-minute marathon and your easy paces are 920, like, you're basically almost running your marathon. Or if you can run a 9-minute marathon and you're running a 8:15 5K, like, something's off there. Like, something's not right in your training. You're not either firing to get the speed you need, or you're not running the amount of base miles at the intensity you need to be able to effectively put together a long distance race in the proper intensity, because you probably aren't training in the right intensities for that 16-week period for your marathon. So that's just something to think about, and understand that there is a large range in what your paces will be there for running. One of the last few things is, we're just all guilty of it. I get things sent to me all the time. Check this out. And then it's like some video of, again, somebody on like podcast just like this telling you what to do. So it's pretty funny that I'm mentioning that. But they're talking like this is the new thing. You want to increase your VO2 max, do this. If you want to run your fastest marathon, just do this workout every week. And then people just do it, which is wild to me. Like they'd rather watch something for a minute and dedicate all this time to it than doing their own research, taking a class, doing this elite best practices. Like all the research has been done already. All the pros have gone through these breakthrough performances over the last few decades, doing these sound training programs. These the unsexy is what some people call it now, is just putting the work in at the right intervals, at the right time. And that's what they call it. It's elite best practices. What's great is you let them spend all the money and do all the research and have all the top coaches telling them what the newest trends are out of the labs in these research studies, because they do it. And then it filters down into the age groups, and then it just filters down into the everyday people like you and I. Like it's already been done. There's books on it. There's courses on it, on what you need to do to perform better in triathlon, ultra running, regular road running, swimming, biking, running, whatever it is. So don't concern yourself too much with the influencer side of things. Like it's cool if you see something pop up or somebody says something in a podcast like, oh, really? That's a little different than I've heard. Like look it up, do some research, look up some studies, look up, it will pop up plenty of things in whatever it is that you're trying to look up, and just kind of do your own research. Then talk to people, talk to other people that are in training and see what they say. Maybe they've tried it before. Maybe they have had a coach that recommended that or highly, didn't recommend it. And just do your own research on things. And then again, wait for things to filter down. Like anything that you have, all these run books and run programs, they're solidified already by these elite best practices, and they're out there. They're out there for you to just take on and execute them very well. And then the last part for tonight, which then we'll wrap up here, is something that an athlete mentioned to me. And again, I mentioned this phrase a few times already, is this paralysis by analysis. We get so hung up in what the paces say for our workouts, what we need to be at, what we need to do. And we're just hammering along. Some people just become like a robot. They're just firing every day, putting the work in. And then they want to just this, we can't overanalyze. Once we start digging too much into data, numbers, focusing on how the workout went, what was the output, what did I run, what was my speed, did I hit the right speed today? You start to not enjoy it. It starts to not be as fun. We start to get like paralyzed by this data, and it just doesn't become fun anymore. So I switched back recently to a few athletes, giving them workouts by RPE, rate of perceived effort. And a few of them, which weren't familiar with it, have, reached out and be like, I need a refresh on what the RPEs are. And that's something where we're taking numbers out of it. Like I want you to go out and run easy. If I say go run an RPE 4 out of 10, you should understand that that's a relatively easy, moderate run. And that's something we should be able to go do easily and talk back and forth for an hour. If I say, go do that and then give me 5 by 2 minutes with 2 minutes recovery at about an RPE of a 7 or 8, you should understand that what a 7 or 8 is. Like we're talking about a 5K pace. And if you know what your 5K pace is, I should be shooting for maybe, if you're a 6:20 5K pace, like somewhere in the low 6s. We're not just going to get hammered on what that pace is or a set pace in that workout, because inevitably I've had races where my watch, the GPS was an error. The GPS was off. So we had to kind of go by feel. We just had to run and instinctively do it and instinctively understand what my RPE is for a 5K, what my RPE is for a half marathon, a 10K or a marathon, and understand where things fall in that spectrum there. Because at any given point, if we're having a conversation or I have a conversation with an athlete, if we talk in RPE terms, you'll get an understanding of exactly the type of run that we're looking for or the type of effort that we're looking for out there that day. So that's something that we really need to understand with that. This relayed with that was the inputs, not the outputs. Again, focus on what we're doing, the amount of sleep we're getting, what we're eating, what we're drinking, the efforts we're putting in. Are we checking all the boxes? Are we doing the workouts. Like all of those are inputs into the bank, into this big computer database, basically, of our training. And me as the coach, I'm the one that's kind of filtering through the outputs. I'm looking at the graphs. I'm looking at how your body's responding, what our training loads are, acute and chronic loads. And I'm kind of let me analyze the outputs. And when things are off or things are not going the way we want, trust me, I'll let you know and we'll adapt and we'll adjust on that as well. And then the last piece of the puzzle here tonight is the execution of workouts. Focus on that when you have a workout, not specifically always the outcome of the workout. I was guilty of it for a long time too, is just wondering, hey, what's my average pace going to be at the end of this workout? What's it going to say on Strava? What's it going to be posted? Oh, that's a little slower than my usual. Like if I just ran some hard efforts around the track, I want my average pace to be pretty good for the workout. Is once you get rid of that mentality and focus on, if we're going by pace and we have some 3-minute intervals to do, 5 by 3 minutes, and just say the pace is supposed to be 6 minutes per mile for those 3-minute segments. Focus on having a steady 6 minute per mile for each of those segments. Like a better executed workout would be if somebody nailed each of those at exactly 6 minutes straight for those 3 minutes, as opposed to maybe going out at 5:30, dipping down to 6:30. They had an average of 6 during interval, but they always went out too fast, crashed and burned every 3 minutes. Or went out way too hard the first few intervals, ran 5:30s, and then wound up running 6:30s the last couple intervals. Yeah, okay, your average for all the intervals was 6, but which is a better executed workout? It would be what was called for. 6 minutes for 6 minutes per mile over 3 minutes, X amount of times that we have to do it. And to see that hit every single time on the graph afterwards would be a perfectly executed workout, showing great body awareness, showing great ability to pace. And that's focusing on your input, your execution of the workout, not just I'm going to run my balls off so I can have the fastest average pace afterwards so that my friends, give me a kudos on Strava. Again, execute things properly. And then when the time comes, race day, that's when you let it go. That's when you have the best day. That's when you execute everything flawlessly. And trust me, then you'll say that was because of all the smart work I put in over the last few months was to get that result that I was looking for that day. So there we go. That was a little just synopsis of a few things I've been writing down and conversations I've had with people, things that really didn't need a huge deep dive over an entire conversation. So maybe once a month, every few episodes, if I have enough small topics like this, because you've reached out about a few things, I'll keep it going. And let me know if you kind of like this. It's kind of like an all over. Again, that potluck podcast, we'll call it, is just kind of just a bunch of different topics and just a bunch of different things to focus on. And for now, I want everybody to stay safe out there, stay healthy. Again, thank you for all the support. Thank you for reaching out. Every time somebody reaches out and says, hey, I enjoyed listening to last week's episode, or any positivity like that, just keeps the fire, fueled up, keep going along here and keep crushing it. If there's anything else you'd like to hear about, again, please reach out. But for now, I just want everybody, again, stay safe, stay healthy, keep balancing that life 1 mile at a time, and I will catch you all on the next episode. Have a good one.